Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. My name is Kristen and this is Growing Zone 9B. Today we are going to be focusing on some apples. My fiance went up to Georgia and picked up some apples here. So I have already started washing these apples off. They look great. They're beautiful. This is not the kind of junk that you end up getting at the store. So that's what I say, friends. You know, we always got to stay busy, stay focused on, preparing and putting stuff away. And so I am deciding that today what we are going to be doing is, number one, I'm going to be making the jelly. You can go back into my other videos and check that jelly out. I am not preserving that jelly for long-term use because it gets just eaten up very quickly here in our house. But what I am going to do is I'm going to keep the peels. I've already started to put them in this Tupperware container. And basically you're just going to peel them and then I will use my apple slicer, and yes, this is a manual process. It does take a while, and I will end up slicing these up. Now, you don't have to use all the apple peels today. What you can do is I actually have a food saver, and I have my food saver bags. And what I do is I just take the peels that I'm not going to use in the jelly today, and I drop them in the freezer as well in a separate bag for future use, because sometimes you want jelly in the middle of the summer, with the kids and stuff, or for my parents, and I don't want to have to sit there and peel them and deal with that and get extra apples just for that. When they're fresh and ripe and beautiful is the time of year that I want to be doing this project. And so that's what we're going to be focusing on today. The other thing that my fiance got when he was up there is some bee pollen. This is really beneficial and helpful for you. You guys do your own research. The bee pollen can help to strengthen immunity. It aids in brain health. It reduces asthma symptoms, or has the potential to. It is helps with adrenal fatigue, boosts fertility, aids in weight management, manages and helps to control cholesterol and triglycerides, and it treats skin-related ailments, eczema, hives, rashes. This is just really good stuff. So if you can get this somewhere local, or we obviously got this in Georgia, but you want to be looking for stuff like this. This is a natural healing process, and that's, friends, what we're always looking for. So we got that, and then today, to keep us energized, Dutch Brothers Coffee. If you all have never heard of them, I would honestly say I'm just a Dunkin' girl. I love Dunkin', and I don't know that they're any better than a Dunkin', honestly. I will tell you they are better, in my opinion, than a Starbucks, because Starbucks has that bitter afterbite, and that's not my favorite go-to. And that is a chai latte tea with coconut milk. So if you want to go check that out, it's really delicious. They have a seasonal drink right now, which is a cookie, like a Christmas cookie. It's really nice. All right, so this slicer cuts just like that. Look how beautiful that is. This, like I said, this is a manual process. And I just take these chunks and I just slip them into my food saver bag so that I can have them. Now what I'm gonna be doing with some of these apples, I'm gonna keep them back because I'm gonna be also making an apple pie for when my family comes over and celebrates the holidays. I like to make a fresh apple pie using these apples. Now, if you are somewhere where you have apple trees, we don't really have those here in Florida, what you can do is you can also make vinegar, apple cider vinegar with the apples if you're in super abundance of them. So it's just a beautiful thing to be able to have fresh and to know where you can go. I think we need to be kind of focused on that type of buying, is buying local, buying what's in season, and trying to eat it during that time frame. Like I said, I do like to put some apples away, but fresh is always best, basically. So we are still working on our apples here. I just want to give you the names of the apples. It's Crimson Crisp, and then we have Ever Crisp is in this bag over here. So I started peeling these apples. The next thing that we're going to be doing is applesauce. Super simple, super easy. Basically, I have gone ahead and I've peeled these apples, and I'm just going to go ahead and just start cutting them. I'm not going to use my handy dandy little cutter here. I have been putting the other apples away in the freezer. So far I've gotten about 15 bags, which is really nice to have. So just dropping the apples in. I'm gonna do about, when it's said and done, I'm probably gonna do about 15 apples or so. And it's simple. Put your crock pot on low, and you can cook this down for about 6 to 8 hours. Or if you don't have a lot of time on your hands, you can do it on high for about maybe 4 hours or so, give or take. Now this is not applesauce for like preserving. This is just, we're gonna eat this week. So this is just for fresh consumption. It's just gonna go in the refrigerator. Obviously, if you're gonna be canning, you need to follow a canning book or recipe for that, because nobody wants to get sick because they didn't do it correctly. Because I know it takes like a certain amount of like sugar, and you gotta like water bath it or whatever. So I don't really get into that type of stuff. So, because like I said, we try to eat as much as we can, like fresh or whatnot. But if you want to put these in smaller pieces, you can. We like chunkier applesauce, So when this cooks down, basically what I'm going to do is right now I'm going to throw in a little bit of Redmond's. We're going to put a little bit of cinnamon in. And then we're going to use some ground ginger. I like to be heavy-handed. You do it to your liking. All right, so like I said, a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of ginger. I put a little bit of salt. Now I will come in after this is finished cooking. I will add a little bit of lemon juice to this just to kind of keep that coloring a little bit nicer and not so dark. But the cinnamon's going to bring out darkness anyway. I am not adding any sugar because these types of apples are really high in sugar. And so because I have family members that are diabetic, I do not want them to get a sugar rush from this because like I said, these types of apples are really high. Now if you want to kind of tone down that sweetness to it, what you can do is you can add some green apples into this. And like I said, I do not add any sugar. I just don't think it's necessary. And so like I said, this is going to go in the refrigerator. I'll put it up in some jars and show you what it looks like when it's finished and cooled. You want to take, when this is finished cooking, an immersion blender and then just go in there and blend it up, and then that way you can put it, if you like it super fine, you can kind of adjust to it at that time. Otherwise, just leave it a little chunky like we like to do. All right, so we're still in apple mode, and we are going to take some green apples and peel them, and some red apples, and we have got to make an apple pie today. I have made apple pies with you all before. You know that I use the gluten-free pie shells from Whole Foods to make my apple pies. I have family coming over, so they have asked for apple pies, and since we still have these beautiful apples, I wanted to get those in here. So what I use approximately is, give or take, depending on the size of the apple. These apples, ooh, the big green ones here, it only will take about 3 green ones because you want to do that, you know, sweet and sour kind of vibe on a pie. That's what I like anyway. And I'm going to do the crumble topping, which is, again, a super easy topping. Some people call it like a Dutch topping. I don't know. And of course, all of the peels can either be made into jelly, or you just compost them. I've got my handy dandy little apple cutter. Sometimes I really like to slice the apples using a mandala, because sometimes people just, especially with my niece and stuff, it's hard to give them like big chunks of apple. I don't want her choking. And the little glass, well, it's not little, the bowl that I'm going to use to kind of measure how many apples that I actually really need, because I don't want the pie shell to be just like flowing out over the top. It's 2 liters or 8 cups is what's going to be in this bowl, and anything that's left over, it'll be fine. And what I do is I get all my apples cut, and then I actually cook them over a stove first because I want them to be fairly cooked down, so that way the pies don't take any amount of time. Now what you can do, I'm gonna make these pies today, but my family is actually coming over tomorrow. It's just one less step for me to have to worry about when people come over, because, you know, I don't want the house to be dirty, so to speak, or not that it's dirty, but I just don't want to have all the dishes and stuff, and I'm running the dishwasher like I'm doing right now. So And by the way, that applesauce turned out super amazing. That's been in the fridge. I add usually a little bit of tapioca flour to my apples because I like the juice to be a little bit like, I think I've told you guys, I like it to kind of be like the McDonald's pies where they're kind of like, not like all watery. I like them to have a little bit of texture, like goo, but a nice goo. Like almost like caramelized, and I don't want to use a lot of sugar to do that. So the best way to kind of get that effect is to add a little bit of tapioca flour to it. And I use probably about 2 tablespoons, 2 to 4 tablespoons. So, all right, so I'm using a little bit less. I can just tell by the size of this that this is going to be sufficient. I don't need any more apples. It's only a little, you know, small pie shell. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to toss them on the stove. A little, there goes the oven for the pie shells. A little bit of sugar, we can just add that now. I'd probably say a good 1/2 cup of sugar. Add your 2 tablespoons of tapioca flour, or 4, eyeball it, and put it on the stove. Cook it down till they get kind of soft, because really what I'm using the oven for now is just honestly just to kind of like keep it nice and hot and warm it up and just get everything kind of congealed. I'm gonna cook that pie shell. That pie shell takes about 10 or 15 minutes actually. So, and then I'll show y'all what the topping is. Super simple, super easy. All right, we are drinking Sprouts coconut water with the pulp. Really good. Remember, this is living water, and so you also need to be doing your hydrogen water. Don't forget about your hydrogen water. So keep drinking those throughout the day. Keep yourself hydrated and well. And I'll see you guys as soon as the pie is ready. All right, friends, so we have finished our pies. And so that is going to be the end of what we are doing with our apples this year. Everything else is in the freezer. And so we are excited to have family over and enjoy these delicious pies with us. All right, friends, as always, love one another, be kind, and thank you so much for joining me today and going through this little bit of apple journey with us.